Kansas is no longer just a basketball school. Lance Leipold has completely turned this program around and now has the Jayhawks in a position to contend for a Big 12 title in 2024. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad you could join us today to break down our final Big 12 team, the Kansas Jayhawks. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our weekly exclusive newsletters and our expert picks over on thegridironexpert.com. You do not want to miss out on either of those things, guys. The newsletter, free to sign up for. Our expert picks, one of the best deals in the country. No other site is offering a deal as good as ours, and no other site has a track record as good as ours, beating over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. So go take advantage of all that. We want you to sign up, and we want you to become a member of our GE Nation. So Kansas. You heard what I said. Lance Leipold, he's completely turned this program around. Here's a fun stat for you. In the 9 years before Lance Leipold arrived in Lawrence, the 9 years before that, Kansas won a combined 16 games. In the 3 years under Leipold, Kansas has won 17 games, including 15 in the last 2, including a 9-win season last year, including their first bowl win since 2008, just last season when they beat UNLV. This was a great Kansas team, guys, and what's been more impressive to me is that they won 9 games last year pretty much without Jalen Daniels. One of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 has battled injuries throughout his entire career, and with their backup quarterback, Jason Beam, were able to get to 9 wins and win that bowl game. That's what's more impressive to me. You look at the roster now, 7 starters are back on offense, and it really all rides on the health of Jalen Daniels. That's going to be the key. When he's healthy, he is one of the best quarterbacks, not just in the Big 12, but in the country. But can he stay healthy? If he doesn't, Jason Bean's no longer there. He was one of the best, most experienced backup quarterbacks in the nation. He's gone now. They've got Cole Ballard, who had a little bit of experience last year, but he's no Jason Bean. So can Jalen Daniels be the guy? Can he stay healthy? That's going to be the biggest key for Kansas for the entire season. They do have Devin Neal, though. Neal returns as one of the best running backs in the nation, over 1,200 yards and 16 touchdowns last year. Their top 3 wide receivers do return, and Lawrence Arnold, Luke Grimm, and Quentin Skinner, all of which had over 500 reception yards last season. The offensive line, only minor concern. 2 starters are back, so they're going to have to replace a few starters up front, but should be okay. Kansas has one of the best offenses in the Big 12, again, if they can stay healthy. Defensively, that's what the Jayhawks have to improve on, right? And they've improved drastically every year under Leipold, right? They went from 42.2 points per game allowed in his first year to 35.5 points per game allowed his second year, down to 26.5 points per game allowed last year. So they've allowed nearly 16 points per game less in the 3 years that he's been there, steadily improving year after year after year. And their 378 yards per game they allowed last year was the Jayhawks' best since the 2007 season, where they were 1 win away from a national championship and ultimately ended up winning the Orange Bowl. So this is a very good Kansas defense that continues to improve. They do lose 3 of their top 4 tacklers, but Jeremy Robinson returns up front, had 4.5 sacks on the defensive line last year. J.B. Brown, the number 3 tackler on the team, returns at linebacker. And they've got a very, very good secondary led by Kobe Bryant, one of the best cornerbacks in the nation this year. They also have Mello Dotson and Marvin Grant. So this is a dangerous Kansas team, guys. Secondary, very solid. Biggest thing for them is stopping the run, where they allowed 162 rushing yards per game. They improve on those numbers, they could find themselves in Arlington battling for a Big 12 title. You take a look at the schedule. It's not horrible. It's very, very manageable. And keep in mind, Kansas last year, 9-4, 8 wins in the regular season. They had 1-possession losses to Texas Tech, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. So 3 1-possession losses easily could have been a 9, 10, 11-win season for Kansas. And many believe it could have been that had Jalen Daniels played the entire year. Remember that Texas Tech loss at home. They were upset by the Red Raiders, but Cole Ballard played the majority of that game. Probably should have beaten them. So one of those interesting things, nuggets, for the Jayhawks. But I take a look at their schedule, and I think they start 3-0. I really do. They're going to cruise past Lindenwood. They're going to beat Illinois. They beat the Fighting Illini by 11 points last year. You look at that score and you go, oh, Illinois gave them a fight, but Kansas pulled away late. No, it was a blowout from the start. Kansas annihilated Illinois. They were up 34-7, allowed the Fighting Illini to make things a little interesting, but it was way too late. They outgained them by 198 yards, 539 to 341. Illinois offensively loses way too much. they're going to get run down. The offense isn't going to be able to sustain drives. The defense is going to be out there way more than they want them to be, and Kansas will make them pay for that. So they do beat Illinois, and they beat UNLV. How fitting that they get to play the Rebels in a rematch of last year's bowl game. Beat them in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl 49-36, but now at home, Kansas will get the win. And it should be noted, Kansas really doesn't have a true home game. They're playing all of their games in Kansas City, not in Lawrence. A couple games at Children's Mercy Park, but most of their games at the Chiefs Stadium, Arrowhead Stadium, is where most of their games will be played. Still home field advantage in a way, not having to go on the road, but as they renovate their entire football stadium and facilities, again, now that Kansas is taking football seriously because of the rise of the program under Lance Leipold, they will not be playing any true home games, but they still beat UNLV. Then they go on the road to West Virginia, a tough game against the Mountaineers, where they are 2-9 in Big 12 play. They've only defeated West Virginia twice in Big 12 conference play. And I really like this West Virginia team, guys. I really like them a lot. Their front seven defensively is very good, very underrated. And the biggest thing that I'm talking about here is their rushing defense. Has Kansas fixed it by week 4? Has it improved drastically by week 4? Because West Virginia wants to run the ball. Averaged over 200 rushing yards per game last year. Have 3 guys coming back that rushed for over 700 yards, including a dual-threat quarterback in Garrett Green. Last time Kansas visited Morgantown, they did win 55-42 in overtime, had that pick 6 in overtime to end up winning by double digits, but I think West Virginia gets their revenge now. I like this offense a little bit too much. Home field advantage plays a big role, and I can argue that West Virginia has the better defense in this game. So offense can match Kansas. They own the defensive edge. They own home field advantage. Give me the Mountaineers to win, and Kansas goes to 3-1. But after that, schedule lightens up a little bit. TCU at home, at Arizona State, a bye week, and then Houston. I think Kansas wins their next 3 games. So they lose to West Virginia, but then win the next 3. They're 6-1. They've clinched another bowl berth. How about that? 3 years in a row they're going bowling. Those games should be relatively easy. TCU going to be the toughest of those. They've only defeated the Horned Frogs once in Big 12 play. Obviously, back in 2022, that highly anticipated matchup in Lawrence, TCU scored the game-winning touchdown with 1:36 left to win 38-31 and ended up making the national championship game that year. But this TCU team obviously is not the same as 2022. We know that, right? They went 5-7 last year. They only have 1 guy coming back on the offensive line. The defense should be pretty solid, but they've got a lot of work to do on that side of the ball. TCU's strength is going to be throwing the football. They average over 300 passing yards per game. Kansas's defensive strength is their secondary. I think they shut down TCU's passing attack. They take care of business at home and a little bit of revenge from that 2022 loss. They get their 4th win, and then they cruise past Arizona State and Houston, who I think are the 2 worst teams in the Big 12 this year. The Sun Devils and the Cougars will be lucky if they can find at least 1 conference win on their schedule. They're not getting a conference win against Kansas, I can tell you that. The Sun Devils, in their first ever meeting against Kansas, will struggle mightily in the desert, and Houston will struggle mightily as well in their first year under Willie Fritz, and what's going to be a major rebuild for that program. So 6-1 heading into the key stretch. 6-1 as they start to face tougher teams. Kansas State going to be tough. Iowa State very tough. On the road in Provo, not easy. Colorado, people are pretty high on them. And then a game in Waco to end out the year. 6-1 though. They were a nationally ranked team, probably top 15 in the country. Had their eyes set on a Big 12 title berth. Those hopes and aspirations take a little bit of a hit when they lose at Kansas State. I know. It's unfortunate, right? I have a hard time picking teams to win in their rivalry game when they haven't done it in so long. And there's other aspects as well. But Kansas, guys, has lost 15 straight to Kansas State. 15 straight. They haven't defeated the Wildcats since 2008. Last year they were close, losing just 31-27. But now you look at this game. The game's in Manhattan, and I know there's going to be plenty of Jayhawk faithful that show up, no doubt about it. But the game is in Manhattan. Kansas State is off a bye. The Wildcats will have one of the best rushing attacks in this conference, maybe in the country, with that dangerous dual-threat quarterback in Avery Johnson and DJ Giddens, who was an 1,000-yard rusher last year. And Kansas State, more than anything, has the defensive advantage. Always a stingy defense under Chris Kleiman. They're stingy again with 8 starters back. I love the defense. So I look at this. Kind of similar to that West Virginia game. Kansas State can match Kansas offensively, step for step, no doubt about it. They own the defensive advantage, no doubt about it. And they own the home field advantage. And they own history, 15 straight wins. The Wildcats make it 16 straight. Kansas falls short. Another close game. It's going to be close. Kansas falls short, and now they take their 2nd loss of the year. Coming out of their bye week, though, we said the games get tougher. Iowa State, BYU, Colorado, Baylor all in the month of November, but 2 of those games in the next 3 are at home. And I actually think they win all 3 of their next games again. So, I mean, look at that. It's kind of funny. 3 wins, loss, 3 wins, loss, 3 wins. Kind of see the pattern here. Well, they lose to Baylor. We'll get to that in a second. But they beat Iowa State. Iowa State, they are a legitimate Big 12 title contender. No doubt about that. I love the offense, and I love their defense. One of the best in the Big 12. I think the top 3 defenses in the Big 12 this year are Utah, Kansas State, and Iowa State, in no specific order. But the Cyclones now having to come on the road into Kansas City. Kansas coming off a bye week in this game. They own the offensive advantage for sure. Iowa State's got talent. Rocco Beck, Nabusama, some of their best wide receivers returning. No doubt about it. But Kansas owns the offensive advantage here. And that's going to be the difference maker if they can stay healthy. They beat Iowa State 28-21 last year. I think they get very creative. Kansas does offensively to exploit this Iowa State defense and find ways to get some points against what's going to be a very good defense, one that's held their opponents to under 23 points per game 4 years in a row. Last year, Kansas did a phenomenal job defensively. They held Iowa State to 75 rushing yards, one of their best performances against the run all year long. If they do that again, I believe they can. I believe they will. If they get this game, Kansas gets a big win over the Cyclones and then wins their next 2 over BYU and Provo, who they beat by 11 last year, 38-27, benefiting from a lot of turnovers, plus 3 in the turnover margin in that game last year against the Cougars. Because that massive hit by, I think it was Kobe Bryant that had that massive hit. That scoop and score was pretty awesome. Highlight reel on every college football video if you watch them. They beat BYU, though, is going to struggle big time. Roster's better. Schedule does them no favors, though. And then Colorado, a reunion in Big 12 play. Colorado joining the Big 12 again after departing for the Pac-12. The Pac-12 fell apart. Haven't met the Buffalo since 2010. And Kansas has actually lost 7 straight games on Senior Day. That streak comes to an end. Colorado wants to air it out. They've got a great quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. Why wouldn't you? But Kansas has a very good secondary, as we've said. They do that. Colorado, I don't have faith in their offensive line, defensive line just yet. I know they bulked up through the transfer portal. They're going to be better on both sides of the ball, no doubt. But Kansas, the secondary does their job. The defensive line does their job. And Colorado, horrendous against the run last year, even worse than Kansas was, gets torched by Devin Neal, Daniel Henshaw, backup running back who's very, very talented. They're going to run all over the Buffaloes, especially on Senior Day. They get the job done. With that, that's 9 wins. That's a 9-win regular season for Kansas. Can they make it 10? Can they make it 10 with only 2 conference losses and be in the mix for that Big 12 title by the end of the season? They're in the mix for it now, no doubt about it. Could Baylor ruin it for them? Yeah, they will. Baylor's going to play spoiler here. I'm not saying a win against Baylor puts Kansas in the Big 12 championship. Obviously, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, those teams are going to be at the top of the standings as well. But Kansas could be in there and create chaos among the tiebreakers, but they're not able to do it. On the road in Waco against an improving Baylor team, one that was horrendous last year, but has been completely rebuilt by Dave Aranda, not just on the coaching staff, but from a talent standpoint as well. Kansas now facing one of the most experienced transfer quarterbacks in the country in DeQuan Finn, coming in from Toledo. All of their skill position players are coming back. 8 of their top 10 tacklers are coming back. Baylor could find themselves up against the wall. A win puts them in the postseason. A loss keeps them at home. Dave Aranda could be fighting for his job. Too many things, in my opinion, going in Baylor's way. Home field advantage, a defense that can do their job, pressure more so than Kansas is going to face. Baylor gets the job done, pulls off the upset, and the Jayhawks finish at 9-3. Still a remarkable season for the Jayhawks. Horrible first year under Lance Leipold. Second year, get to 6-7. Next year, go to 9-4. This year, improvement because they win 9 games in the regular season, meaning that Kansas will go to a very good bowl game and will have a shot at a double-digit win season. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com. That includes those expert picks. That includes those weekly exclusive newsletters. We want you to take advantage of all that, guys. We want you to sign up and become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.